Hello, everyone. I'm Davy Jags, and this is Sparkle On. Sparkle is your happiness, passion, and self-worth, and that is found through the power of creativity. Today, I'm so excited to bring on this guest. She has shaped my entire music library, my taste, and everything since I was 13 years old. Lindsay Wolfington. She's the Emmy-nominated music supervisor known for my favorite show, One Tree Hill. But she's also known for the To All the Boys I Loved Before trilogy. But she's also been nominated 11 times by the Guild of Music Supervisors for her shows on XO Kitty, Royals, and most recently won in 2024 for Theater Camp. She also hosts her own podcast called Sad Song Queens with her co-collaborator Lara Webb, where they dive into their love of sad songs.
Someone I'm standing and I'm shouting out.
Lindsay, thank you so much for joining Sparkle On. What was the first song or album that made you realize you wanted to be a music supervisor? Did you even know what that was?
I kind of figured out what it was before it became popular. I was a huge fan of the TV show Felicity, which was on when I was in college. And I had friends and we would all get together and watch episodes. And at the time I was in college, I did a cappella, and I worked at the radio station, which was a commercial radio station called WBRU in Providence. But I had reached a point where I knew I didn't want to continue the radio route. So I was kind of like, what else is there? And then, Felicity was the show that had the end montage at the end of every episode that was usually with slow-mos and stuff. And I was like, I love that. I was like, what if I bet that's someone's job. There's a lot of music in this show. I bet somebody does that for a living. And I went to the movies and saw the credit music supervisor at the end and was like, I bet that's what it's called. So that was a lot of just luck puzzle piecing. And then when I moved to LA, I was networking and I met with an alum from my a cappella group who happened to work at Disney. And he's like, oh, I oversee shows like Felicity and Alias. And I was like, oh my God, wow. Felicity is my dream job. And he said, your best bet is to start as an unpaid intern. I can send your resume over. He knew the women who worked on it, which was Jennifer Peyton and Madonna Wade Reed. And this is 2001. So they were working on season 4. So I came in, started unpaid. It was right time, right place. They needed an extra hand in the office. They went from having 2 to 4 shows and they were behind on paperwork. And I came in and was doing confirmation letters. So, when we use music in film and TV, you have to get permission and you agree on a fee. So there's licensing paperwork that's involved with that. And the confirmation letter is what you do, when you're going to use the song and the terms and the fee have all been agreed to. So it's a little bit of data entry. It's so-and-so has 50% of the song. So you will receive 50% of the fee, blah, blah, blah. So that's how I got started. I will say in terms of a soundtrack album. I was always into soundtracks, and Reality Bites is another one of those films and movie soundtracks that I liked and I would say inspired me, to take this path.
Did you always, as a young person, kind of have songs that played in your head when you were experiencing something? Or did it come naturally to you, or was this something that you really had to teach yourself?
No, I think, I would say more of it came naturally. I mean, what does that mean, right? I was the kid who was reenacting Annie and Phantom of the Opera in my basement, and I wrote a musical at one point. And, when I was 8, I wrote 2 scenes or something, but it had a song or 2.
Right.
And then was definitely always, I was into music. I'm the youngest of 5 kids, and my brother Jed, who's 6 years older than I am, was at some point was check out all this cool new music. And it was the Cranberries and New Order and The Cure. And so I felt I was exposed to cool music and liked it at a younger age. And so I just became very interested in music. Loved, going on the school ski trip and listening to the whole 10,000 Maniacs album on my Discman. I loved looking out the window and listening to music. I was always the friend in college who made a mixtape every semester that was everybody's favorite songs of that semester.
Oh, that's
so,
awesome.
There wasn't that obvious visual element.
Right.
Although I do say, I'm definitely a product of MTV. Growing up, my parents would say, "Oh, that stuff's so junky. Don't watch MTV." But it's the opposite of what I do, right? Like I was watching music videos, which was visuals created for songs, and I loved that.
Right.
And how can you not think that maybe watching all those impacted my ability to then place music to visuals, And it's definitely, I was talking to somebody over my vacation a couple of weeks ago who was like, "Oh my God, I didn't know this job exists. That's like so cool," right? Like it's movies and music. It's two very cool things. And it's obviously a lot more complicated than that, but it is pretty cool.
No, I think it's one of the coolest jobs in the world. Like I don't know. I don't think my music taste evolves enough for me to ever do that job. But I think it's a big part of my writing process, right? Like I'm similar where I'll write a scene and I'll put a song there. Or one of the main things I do is if a song just like hits me that week, I'll play it endlessly for like 8 hours straight until I write the chapter that I need to write. So it's like maybe it's not the right song from like someone with your expertise to be like, yes, that should go. If it gets adapted, it should go in that scene. But I think a lot of writers specifically use music as like this rhythmic thing to get the words in their head out.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. And even if, there are definitely plenty of times where a writer has put a song in a script and it's not actually what you use at the end of the day.
Right.
Maybe that's because it was too expensive or a clearance issue, but sometimes it's because when you went through the filter of, it's such an interesting process, right? There's a script. And then when I read a script and I then break it down, I'm looking for scenes where I think we'll need music. And sometimes it's like, oh, we're in the bar. We're at Jack's Bar in Virgin River. There's always music in there. So I'm obviously going to note that. And then other times I'm looking for moments, it's a first kiss moment. Like, oh, we're going slow-mo here. Oh, this is obviously a montage. But then, somebody else is reading the script and directing it. And then somebody else is reading the script and acting it. And then the editor has all these things coming together. So I always say sometimes, there are times where I read the script and I'm like, oh my God, we have to have this song. It's going to be amazing. And it is. And then there are other times where I'm like, oh my God, this song's going to be so good. And then the tone of the scene is just entirely different. So
is that just because of like what happens in post-production versus like physically reading the script, or what is usually the thing that kind of makes that happen?
I mean, I think the picture is going to tell us what it needs. But how we get the picture depends on the actors and the director and the cinematographer and the costumer, right? Like all these things kind of come together. But so there are different choices that can be made. Like I may have read something and thought it was going to be, I wish I had a specific example in mind, but I mean, interestingly, so I'm working on a scene for a show right now, and I saw the first cut last night, and I had sent kind of dark, mysterious music because I thought it was going to go over 3 scenes that are dark and mysterious, and they're currently only using it for the first of those 3 scenes.
Okay.
And I'm like, oh, if I had thought it was only this first scene, I probably would have gone more like loving and maybe sexy. Like it was only the beginning of the mystery, but it seems to be working for everybody. So just stuff like that happens. And really you need to try the song to picture to figure out what works.
And what aspects of the song do you believe like complements the scene? Is it is it lyrically driven? Is it the actual like sound and composition? I don't have a music background, so bear with me.
It's all good. Yeah. When it comes to music and you don't have showrunners, writers don't always, sometimes having musical knowledge can be an impairment. But sometimes it's just easier to talk in terms of emotion, right? So so if you know the scene is going to be sad or heartbreaking, it's easier than trying to say, oh, I need an acoustic guitar and a piano here, right? So for a show like Virgin River, like that is our sound anyway.
Right.
But instrumentation is always, the tone of the song is probably the most important, right? Lyrics, assuming you're going to hear them every once in a while, something's in the background and then the lyrics don't really matter. But usually, a good lyric or a lyric that really hits what the character's face is feeling or something is often super powerful. But There are lots of elements to the song, right? Like maybe like a quiet intro that picks up pace as he says something passionately, right? So there are dynamics in the song that are also equally as important as the instrumentation and the lyrics.
And I think that is what, when I was a young person, became my favorite thing about One Tree Hill was the intros might start soft and you might not notice it. And then all of a sudden the tension would build in the dialogue, but somehow the lyrics, they might not even match. They just complement, is the way that I describe how you did One Tree Hill. Yeah. It was arguably something that like blew up your career. I mean, what you did like 78 plus episodes or something like that.
We're over 187.
Yeah, that's a lot. Yeah. I mean, I think because now you just see more people move around from show to show.
Yeah.
And I think the early 2000s maybe did a better job of keeping the same people on and keeping that tone. But what was your process for building that show up to be what it was, as influential as it was in music specifically?
Well, what's interesting is at the time, we didn't feel very important. We felt like the little show that could. We were kind of like the ugly stepchild to the OC. Yeah. Everybody talked about the OC. We were produced by the same studio. We were both at Warner Brothers. But the OC got all the shine. The first 2 seasons of the show, I was the coordinator in my office. But we worked on 3 shows, and each of us was the point person on a show. And One Tree Hill was like the new one. So I was the point person on it. So I was in the trenches from the start. I do think some of the things that made it what it was in some respect was, it was a young audience and young characters, right? Yep. They were in high school. So it was kind of similar on Smallville. Also, high schoolers tend to listen to a lot of music. It's a period of life where people naturally listen to music and think music is important. I also had showrunners who were very into music. So, throughout its 9 years, we used around an average of 10 songs an episode. And there were episodes that had like 18 songs. And then we only had one episode that had 1 song, which was the school shooting episode. And then we used the Michelle Featherstone song at the end.
Right.
But so from the start, there was kind of a directive or an instinct to just use a lot of music. They were at parties, they were in their cars, they were sometimes walking down the hallway. The coda, which is what we called the end montage, was like a formula we used at the end of every episode. We're going to have a coda song. We're going to have a montage with a song that wraps up the episode. They were playing basketball, so driving music was important. Whether it was rock or hip hop, like you needed a lot of energy to match what was happening on screen. And then the style of it, I think we had so much fun with these coda montage moments that we were like, well, what if we had like montages happening all the time without it being an actual montage? So we used songs to carry over multiple scenes or to tie 2 or 3 scenes together often.
Yes.
And that was really fun. There were occasionally times where that became hard. Like sometimes I'm like, but when I would read the script, I'd be looking, okay, what scenes can we tie together? What are what is a theme that's happening in this scene, that scene that I could that you could use a song to tie it together. Everyone's struggling with heartbreak for these 3 scenes, So we did that a lot. We used a lot of indie music in the beginning because we didn't have a lot of money.
Yeah.
It was a lower budget show. And when you use 10 songs an episode, the money goes fast. Mm-hmm. We definitely used the ad cards, which was, you can't find it anymore. But in the initial 2 airings, you would see, tonight you heard music by, and then it would show the album cover of a band you used and play a snippet of the song that was used. And that was a really good marketing tool that also gave us a break on the licensing fee.
How did you source those indie artists in the beginning?
Through people pitching their music. I mean, if you came into my office at that time, our mail bins were huge and stacked, and opening mail was a task. Yeah. So you were getting it from labels and publishers, but definitely at that time, especially if it was published or on a major label, it was expensive. That's definitely the case, but I think labels and publishers are more flexible with up and coming artists now. And then there were people who represented indie music. Sometimes they're referred to as music libraries, but essentially they're called third-party pitchers. So there were a couple of companies, there are tons of companies doing that now, but at the time there were like a handful of ones that you kind of relied on. And this was, this is the age of CDs. Yeah. So we would like get a CD, and when we had masking tape that we would put on the front, and then we would write like, Karen's Cafe songs. So we'd be like 1, 3, 5 or whatever. So when you were looking for a Karen's Cafe song, or when you were making a mix to send to the editors of just like songs that they could use in Karen's Cafe, you would put like those 3 tracks on it. But yes, you're working with a lot of indie pitchers, and then occasionally the indie artists themselves. Like there was a little bit more space to open a package. Like actually my very first placement ever on Felicity was I opened Jenna Madonna's Mail, and there was an artist named Sarah Sleen, Canadian singer-songwriter. And I was like, ooh, this is cool. And there was a breakup moment with Ben and Felicity in a Chinese restaurant. And it was the kind of like, it was like a 4-minute use. They broke up. She walked out of the restaurant, and I'd found this like dramatic, Sarah McLachlan-esque ballad for, a fifth of the price or whatever. And it was, I finally met her, and she said, oh my God, thank you so much. You paid my rent. And that was really cool. And also, and honestly, it was a big moment for me too, because it was like my favorite show that inspired me to become a music supervisor. And I finally had a placement, and I was like a month into the job. So I was like, I think I got it. I think I can do this. So, there was always like there's great music out there,
of course.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's such a privilege to be able to, highlight it when you can. And for me, sometimes that was like the most exciting part was using these up and coming artists.
Right.
There was actually a point in One Tree Hill where our budget was like slightly better. Maybe it was season 3 or 4 or something. And, but we still always had a budget to worry about, and we still were always super tight negotiating everything. And I remember being like, oh, like maybe there were like 6 big songs in an episode, and I was like, oh, we have to replace these 2. And I remember one of my producers at one point was like, we have money. Why are you still bugging me about the budget? And I was like, well, let's not forget that we built our reputation on using indie artists. So, yes, it can be a pain in the butt, and it can be really exciting to use big artists, but it's a challenge in a fun way to find somebody up and coming that can do it just as well. And there were a couple times where we were trying to license a Green Day song, but at the time they were tricky to license. So I made my producers pick a backup, which was like indie and I knew would clear. And then once we picked it, they were like, oh, wait, we actually like that better. So that's like the best day of your job.
That you chose instead of Green Day?
I feel like I know they were on Minty Fresh Records. I think Light FM was the name of the band, but I can't remember.
That's so interesting. Yeah. But then it's like, because indie music played such a role in Peyton's character as well.
Yes.
So what was your involvement with the plot, but especially the characters then that were eventually casted too? Tyler Hilton, Kate Voegele, like all the people that started coming on when the show progressed as a music show.
So to the Peyton of it all, we made separate mixes that were like Peyton's playlist.
Oh, cool.
Or Peyton's
I need that
mix.
album.
Yeah, right. No, they were actually some of my favorite things. And they tended to be some of those more like, just indie feeling artists. I think in the first episode, I think it was written in that she was listening to the Ataris. I think they didn't license at the time. So I'm not sure if we actually used that. I can't remember. Which was, that like emo punk of the time. And they were a little bit bigger. Like they had just gone from being on like Epitaph to Sony. But anyway, but in general, we took that opportunity to be like indie and cool in Peyton's room. And then the character stuff was really fun. I mean, I remember the first time the showrunner said, it was Kate Vogel's, no, it was Tyler Hilton's character. Like, we want this guy to come on, and he's going to produce Haley's music. And at the time, we were really interested in Butch Walker, who was actually like producer of the year. This is probably 2005. He came in to read, and then we were doing a soundtrack with Maverick Records, who had Tyler Hilton, and they were like, can Tyler read? Can Tyler read? And the casting people were like, no, he's too young. So the label called me and we're like, can you please just get him an audition? It would be great. Plus we're like working on this soundtrack together. So I called our showrunner. I was like, can Tyler have an audition? And they were like, yeah, cool. Just have him come in. And then he played for them. And I think they were like, oh yeah, this is it. This makes a lot more sense.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and it's so crazy. I follow him on social media, and I see him and Kate Vogel on tour, and they're hysterical. But at the time when we cast him, he was like 19 years old, maybe 18. He was very young.
Oh, wow.
Anyway, and so that turned out to be great. The Kate Vogel role, I think I knew was going to be a big deal. Like, whoever got this, it was going to be a really big opportunity. So it was kind of my job to bring a bunch of options and put them in front of the producers. So I remember listening through CDs and trying to be like, who's the next big artist that we want to get behind? Some of the artists I pitched were like indie singer-songwriters that we had used on the show and already loved, and it would be great to like give them a bigger spotlight. And then I remember Paramore was huge. So I was like, what about Haley from Paramore? That would be so Peyton.
Yeah.
Right. But then I asked the label about it, and they're like, she's not going to do anything without the band right now. So I was like, okay,
that made sense. Maybe nowadays.
I know, right?
I know. Someone will use her, off campus will use her.
There you go. They'll be next. Yeah. And there were some like people who became big names as well that we like considered, but in that I was listening through albums and noting like, oh, this is a One Tree Hill song. Oh, we could totally use this. So like we were kind of looking for people who had multiple songs that would feel natural in the show. I know I can find a place for that somewhere. And Kate Vogel had the most of those. And then, she was at a nice spot in her career where she was on MySpace Records. So things were still flexible. And I think as a part of being on our show, like she got upgraded to was on Interscope for a bit. And then, we had a lot of musicians on camera, and definitely the producers felt that like artists are artists. Like a lot of the time musicians were quite good actors. So that worked out.
And I mean, we saw that with Fall Out Boy. Like those were hilarious episodes.
Although I don't know if Pete Wentz is the best actor, but that was fun.
It worked with the vibe during those episodes, I feel like.
Good, okay.
Because I just felt like, okay, so when they're camping.
I probably should be nicer about that. Go on.
No, but I know what you mean. Like you're not going to like give them the same credit as like the regular cast. Right. But it was like, because especially the episode where, oh my God, it's like my favorite Fall Out Boy song, but it's such a long title. I've Got a Dark Alley and A Bad Idea, and then it's like the rest of the title.
Right.
But that plays in that montage where they go up to like, I guess, Rachel's cabin or something. And that was the only relief episode since the school shooting. But it's a pivotal episode because we find out that in that episode at the end that Rachel is the one that releases the time capsule.
Oh, I forgot. Yeah. I need to do a rewatch.
It's bad how actually obsessed I am with One Tree Hill. But
I love it.
It was one of those things where I think for me, from my memory at least, that's when the musicians started making that first appearance. And I'm sure there was like, I don't know about the audience response during the time, but I'm sure that's when it all started, that they were probably like, okay, this is working. Let's open up Tric Nightclub. Like, let's do this.
Well, Tric was actually kind of before the characters.
Oh, okay.
Because Tric started because Sheryl Crow had a best of album, and it was coming out in like February of, it must have been it was season 1, so it must have been 2004. And they were looking for her to perform on a show. Like they wanted to promote. And One Tree Hill, like one of our executive producers was like the biggest Sheryl Crow fan. He was like, yes, I will do anything. And we had an episode that was going to air in February. So it aligned across. Anyway, so she flew in on Super Bowl Sunday and recorded that one scene. And the best way we could make it fit into the plot line was she stopped by the coffee shop and instead of paying, she sang a song. Right. And so the producers were like, we need a better scenario for these kind of opportunities. Because Gavin DeGraw also like played Karen's Cafe, but it was kind of like small.
Right.
Right. So then they had Peyton create Tric so that when a band wanted to come play, it was a real venue. It was like, it made more sense for the bands in real life to show up in Tree Hill.
For sure.
And it made more sense to incorporate into a plot line. And I think Jimmy Eat World came at the end of season 2 and performed. So
second favorite band of all time.
I know. Oh, wait, who's your first?
Counting Crows.
Oh, I love.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome.
August
and everything after is like seminal album.
This podcast will accidentally become a Counting Crows fan or Counting Crows podcast if we go into that right now. Yeah, August and everything after I can talk about for hours. I'll give you the inside scoop of my writing process around that later. Oh. It's chaotic, but I discovered Counting Crows way after. So Jimmy Eat World was like, it was like the Killers and Jimmy Eat World were like my two bouncing back and forth bands. But I found Jimmy Eat World probably technically before I started watching One Tree Hill, because I'm not the age where One Tree Hill was like airing.
Okay.
I was a 96 baby. So I found Jimmy Eat World when A Cinderella Story with Hilary Duff came out.
Yeah. Okay.
And then started watching One Tree Hill. And
how old were you? Like, when are you watching One Tree Hill?
So
like
Netflix had to have been a thing. So I'm a teenager. So I'm in high school. Okay. But I had become an athlete. And so I had just watched Friday Night Lights, the movie, for the first time. So it was One Tree Hill first. And then it was Friday Night Lights. And it was just how I developed all my taste in music, story. It's probably when I first started becoming a writer. I didn't know that at the time, but I think that's how I grew an addiction to running at one point. Okay. So my escape were those shows and finding comfort in those shows. But I would run alone a lot as well. And Pandora was like my streaming service at the time. So what would happen is I would play Jimmy Eat World, or I would put on a One Tree Hill soundtrack. And then the way those algorithms were back then were so much better personally that I think than now. And it would source probably all the music that you put together in One Tree Hill. And that's what I gravitated towards.
Oh, that's awesome.
But I love I think, and it's so interesting hearing your process of how, like, not just because of licensing, but because of montages and the actual craft that you had to do to weave together songs. That's influenced me as a writer today. So like I'll pick a couple Jimmy Eat World songs and I'll like map it out on a story timeline of how they string together. So like one Jimmy Eat World song will work for like a freshman year college scene, but then like I know the kill has to show up in like senior year or something.
Amazing.
Yeah, I mean, 23 got me through my first breakup. I like couldn't handle getting broken up with, and so I like quickly put it on my laptop. When I was, I got the "we should talk" text.
Oh dear.
And so I put 23 on my laptop, and I just had it playing in the background.
I have chills thinking about it. I hadn't listened to that song in forever, and I put it on. I don't know. I was driving somewhere. Mm-hmm. It's so epic.
It's so epic
and like intense. I'm like, you're like, he's singing his heart out.
So were you always a Jimmy Eat World fan, or how did you discover them for this show?
I mean, so when I worked at the radio station in college, Jimmy Eat World was on the Never Been Kissed soundtrack. Okay. And that was one thing we had to do at the radio station was make commercials. And very often we would pull, sometimes we were just doing a tag on the end of go to the D'Angelo sandwich shop in Warwick or whatever. But then sometimes you were making the whole thing, and you also needed to find like the music bed that you were saying your part over. And they had CDs in there, and they had soundtracks, and they had the Never Been Kissed soundtrack. So that was the first time. It was a song from Clarity. Maybe it was Clarity. I forget the name of the song, but I was like, oh, this band is cool. And then obviously in 2001, they like blew up, which was when I was entering the world of music supervision. So, Yeah, I don't feel like I was right on time with that album, but I probably eventually put the whole thing in, and that album is Bleed American's so good.
It's their 25th year anniversary.
Yes, and have you been watching all the content they've been putting out about it?
I have, and then oh my God, it's in September. They're declaring it Jimmy Eat World Day in Phoenix, and I really want to go because they're
what
opening
day? Is
for
it
My
September
Chemical Romance.
23rd?
Yes.
Wait, really?
I'm almost positive September 23rd, and they're opening for My Chemical Romance for a Black Parade concert.
Wow. Interesting. Wait, because One Tree Hill premiered on September 23rd.
I don't know
in
that.
2003. That's why I was like, is that what it is?
I swear to God, I think it is the 23rd. It's either the 6th or the 23rd.
Okay. Are you going to Warped Tour? They're playing in Long Beach
I
next weekend.
am not here. I'm trying to go to the Phoenix one. But I mentioned Cinderella's story.
Yeah.
And that's when I heard Hear You Me. And I had a question about, especially because you're obsessed with sad songs. You and Lara have a whole podcast dedicated to sad songs. Is there a specific rule in music supervising that you can use a sad song in a happy scene, or do you always keep it neutral? Like, what is...
There's no rules in music supervision except that the song has to be cleared by the time you use it.
Fair enough.
But yeah, I don't think there's like a rule, because also every producer or director might do something different. Like sometimes people like to be on the nose, and sometimes people like to play counterpoint. So no, but like I just, for me, the really emotional scenes are the most fun and, to find music for. So that's why, and Laura feels the same way. So that's why we did Sad Song Queens, because we love sad songs. There's no rules about it.
Yeah.
It's really anything in music supervision is it's what the story needs. What does the picture tell you? What does your showrunner or director want? And that's the guiding light. And then the rest of it is like, just finding the right thing. And sometimes you don't know until you put it up to camera. Or like I always talk about Keane, She Has No Time, is one of my favorite personal uses on One Tree Hill. One, because it's like sad and dramatic, and it's like a huge breakup, like Haley and Nathan, and she's going on tour, like she's choosing herself. And but it was there was another song, Tempt In, and it was like 6 minutes long, and I was like, oh my God, like how am I gonna find another 6 minute song? The other song I think we had used before, so it was just we were never gonna like repeat a song. And I picked up that Keane album and just like literally like boombox and television, just played like track 2, blah, blah, blah. Got to this one, played start to finish perfectly. Lyrically, She Has No Time. Girlfriend's getting on a bus and leaving you behind. Like it could not have been more perfect. And it felt like luck that I found it in that moment.
How did you find it?
Just going through the CD. Like I had the CD. Yeah. Something you just got to pick up and start listening.
And so is there like a certain daily practice that you have even when you're not working on shows?
No, but there's no like daily practice, but there are definitely moments where, because a lot of the job is emails and clearance and, or even just, your shows asking you for something, and it's not all listening, but you do need to have listening moments, or like, oh, I'm going to spend the next hour just going through new music and putting them in my bins, like an emotional bin, an upbeat bin, a mysterious bin, whatever it is, so that when I have a moment that needs a song like that, I know where to go. Yeah. My iTunes goes back to season 5 of One Tree Hill, but so those first 4 seasons, like iTunes wasn't really a thing. Right. So with this, I was doing the CD, marking it with tape thing.
Wow.
So, sometimes it was like in here, and then sometimes it would be like, like I know in this stack, there's like a great emotional song, and hopefully you wrote the right note to yourself, last month, and it came through. Although I will have to say, like One Tree Hill, like just that era of television was a lot faster paced. We made 22 to 24 episodes a season.
Right.
So it was like go, go, go. And what was amazing about that was that I could hear, like I remember there was one time where we were a big fan of Ben Lee. And, a new Ben Lee album or song came out and they were like, oh, like we'd really love to find a placement. I was like, oh, this is perfect for the show. And we had on the show in 2 weeks. Like it was that kind, being able to be that fresh and fast was amazing.
Yeah.
But it also meant you needed to have a lot of things at your fingertips and have like songs. So that listening practice was more important to have back then because you really needed to react quickly. It also felt like there are times where it felt like there was just like more great music back then.
That's how I feel.
Okay, good.
No, like I was going to get into that, especially with like, obviously the work that you've done on your newer projects is still amazing. Like I love To All the Boys Who I Loved Before. I listened to those like curated playlists that Amazon put out that obviously you did. Yeah. But no, we're going to get into that because there was, and I don't know if it was just that style of music too.
Definitely a little bit. Like there's not great indie rock right now.
No, okay. So one of the things, what I love about right now with TikTok is the Dare You to Move montage of Nathan Haley is going off like crazy.
Still?
Well, because they're montaging it with Off Campus.
Oh.
I'll send you.
Because it's all like Tudor Girl Part 2. Yeah.
Right. And so the Dare You to Move song is going like crazy again. Because I feel like Off Campus tried to tap into a little bit of that like cultural zeitgeist that you curated with the show, but it's still not the same, right? Mainly because you don't have 24 episodes in a season.
Right.
And you have to balance it with, I think, the attention span that exists now. Like, I don't know if I asked a teenager today to watch One Tree Hill, I don't know if they would have the same attention span.
No, I've tried to watch with my daughter now. I tried like 2 years ago, so maybe she was too young and she was like, and also we got faster as the years went on. So if you're starting in season 1, we're taking a lot more time. There are a lot more montages. Like the camera moves more slowly, which I love at an artistic level.
Same.
And my daughter was a little bit like, there's too much basketball. I was like, oh,
there's too
just
much.
wait till episode 6 when Haley and Nathan get together.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I missed that. I had another guest on, Amy Scott. She actually did the Counting Crows documentary, Lainey Wilson documentary, Sheryl Crow. But she talked about how so much of her role as a director has had to change because of the clipping world. And I wanted to know what your thoughts were about that because, okay, for example, I personally thought there was way too many Taylor Swift songs in The Summer I Turned Pretty. I'm a diehard fan of both. What does your role look like now with the attention span, but also how do you navigate being too literal in the songs that you chose? Because I do think the trilogy of To All the Boys I Loved Before did that really well. It wasn't too literal, even though the show is very whimsical and kind of direct in its approach around romance.
Well, I think that's a directive from the producers and the director. Michael Fiumignoli directed movie 2 and 3. And he definitely didn't want to be too on the nose. There were moments even when we were like, but like, this is the first kiss moment. Like we're allowed to lean into cheese, you know what I mean? Because like, you know, sometimes you want to embrace it and sometimes we did. But that was something they wanted to be careful with, right? So yeah, I think you're always like, what I actually think is kind of an effective way of doing this, and I guess it can verge on too literal, but so one of my favorite uses is from Reality Bites. Have you seen it?
I haven't.
You should see it. But, it's also like, it's about kind of like pursuing your dreams versus working for the man or whatever.
Okay.
But there is a scene where they use U2's and All I Want Is You. And some of the most powerful moments in it are moments where the characters are not saying anything, but the song is saying, like Bono's screaming like, "Whoa, all I want is yeah." Like he's screaming what the character is internally screaming.
Yeah.
And so that can verge on literal, but I feel like as long as he's not saying it at the same time, we're within like the artistic zone.
Right.
But I will really, sometimes it's fun to be literal and sometimes it's not. I mean, like One Tree Hill, like we were definitely on the nose sometimes. And sometimes that felt great. And then other times we were a little less on the nose and maybe took some liberties just because like the song worked so well that even if that lyric wasn't so hot, we still wanted to use it.
I feel like it also, like back to the discussion around style, I think I personally, in my taste, enjoy literal depending on the style. If it's a pop song, even though I love pop songs, don't get me wrong, I don't gravitate towards it that way. The indie rock literal is different.
It's like too much sugar.
Yes.
Yes. I will say, you know, was it funny? Like at the show, like One Tree Hill, people would pitch us pop music all the time. And I'd be like, no. Like it's a pop show. Musically, we're a lot cooler than that. Like I would call it an indie rock show. I mean, it had a ensemble cast, right? With so many different characters that we actually got to use like every style of music, which was also really cool. But we weren't afraid of a slide guitar, and we weren't afraid of like an acoustic ballad, and we weren't afraid of hip hop or like a super punk song, you know? And that was super fun. To your question about clipping and stuff, you know, I think television and film, I'm interested in what Amy said, because I think television, film, documentary is a long form format. So I'm not thinking about clips like I am on the podcast. Right. Like we record an entire episode and then we clip like the top 3 interesting moments. But that is a marketing on Instagram plan. I don't, you know, Virgin River does like clip things sometimes, but I'm much more interested in like the trailer.
Of course.
Right. Like that is like, like 500 sweeping things, or like, you know, that give the whole dynamic of the season with a cool song over it. So I don't think about that.
Yeah. I think from what I understood from some people and what I've noticed is trailers move a lot faster unless it is kind of like obviously like a legacy director than like Christopher Nolan, right? Like you're getting your standard, what I personally perceive as a trailer, but I feel like there's now the trailer A, trailer B, trailer C. And what at least Amy said is that sometimes the documentary itself starts out at the beginning, it feels like a trailer, whereas in other documentaries, you know, back in the early 2000s, they started and they followed that typical Save the Cat, like 3-act structure. And we've almost kind of abolished that a little bit. I don't think it's right to blame TikTok. I just think content is, we didn't, teenagers during One Tree Hill consumed during the weekly episodes, and then they listened to music.
Yes.
They weren't on this, like if they're on the school bus, they were listening to music. They weren't scrolling. Yeah,
the music was how they clipped. Was their TikTok. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, do you remember Hip
like
Clips?
So sad.
You remember Hip Clips?
No. What was Hip Clips?
Oh my God. They were little like things that you would wear on your head.
Like on iPod?
It was before
those
iPod.
Clippy iPods?
Yeah, it was before iPod. And it probably inspired the Clip iPod. But it would be like a keychain full of these little square clips. And then you would put it in and it would only play like 30 seconds of the song.
Oh. 30 seconds?
Yeah, it couldn't play the whole song. I don't know if it was a licensing, but you could go to like Walmart and get them.
Okay.
I was like really little when those were a thing. And then iPod came around and then you got the iPod. And I remember like my first iPod Nano, and like, I don't know why I picked green. I think it was like a girl that I looked up to had a green iPod Nano and I picked green instead of pink.
Funny.
But it was kind of crazy. But I think now on the topic of TikTok, you see so many people take their favorite movie scenes and then they put their own music to it. Like Olivia Rodrigo didn't even need a marketing plan because everyone just took their own montages of different movies,
right,
and like put the Olivia Rodrigo songs to it. What are your thoughts about that? Do you think that's a way to break into the industry nowadays? Because also, I don't know if people can take unpaid internships anymore nowadays. Like, how do you break into this path?
I mean, I do think I think that taking a song and putting it over your own montage is like super creative. I hope there's always room for that. I know there's copyright infringement issues left and right on that, but I think it's exercising a muscle and it's pretty cool. I'm not sure how good I would be at that. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not doing the editing most of the time. I'm just sending the ideas.
Right.
I do love lining the song up to picture. Like the Dare You to Move thing I remember doing in my living room at home and being like, I found the song. And then how to break in. There are occasional, you can get an internship if you're getting credit for it in college.
Right.
So that's actually
true.
a really good time to do it, especially maybe like before senior year. And I think more and more colleges have like realized how important internships are. Like I've just started doing college tours with my daughter and they like talk about it. They're like, NR, we can help you get an internship or whatever.
Right.
I do think it's a hard time in our business right now. Like they're not, it seems like production is coming back, but it's definitely slowed in Hollywood. Which just means that like if it's slow for people like me, then I don't have a need for an intern as much. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I do think, I am part of a world of music for media. So, you pointed out trailers, there are ads, there are documentaries, there's film, TV, video games. And then there are labels and publishers, and there are these third-party pitchers who send us music. There are music libraries, which are companies that either collect or create music that is just to be used in film, TV, in sync, anywhere. So I always tell people to view it as like a world and get your foot in anywhere in the world and you have a foot up over somebody else. Like I would rather hire somebody from a music library or who has like a year or two of music library experience under their belt than somebody who's just like cold out of college.
That
Most times, right? Like they've expressed an interest. They're going to know the difference between like what is, master and sync and publishing and recording, or like the term like MFN, or just like, oh yeah, you have to license stuff and you have to find 100% of it, or maybe have exercised the muscle of trying to like send over music for a particular brief or a scene. So it's definitely challenging, but I also, I was the president of the Guild of Music Supervisors, and that is a great way to get your foot in the door. We always need volunteers, and often the volunteers are checking in real music supervisors, escorting them to, like, we have an education conference in August. It's August 15th this year here in LA. We have an awards show in February generally. And we have events like here and there, just like networking. And I do feel like, there was a guy, volunteers turn into people who get to work for the Guild. We have like 9 part-time employees and 1 full-time employee. And there was a part-timer who got hired by a music supervisor last year because she worked on a committee and he was helpful on that committee. So she brought him on her team, right? So there was another girl who came in, she helped with our conference 1 year and then like stepped up to run our events committee. And now she works at Netflix in the music department. Superstars are superstars and people acknowledge that. I do think like hard work and organization, attention to detail, these are all like skills that music supervisors need.
Yeah.
And they actually stick out because a lot of people don't always have them.
Well, I think it's because there's so much more, like you said, to the job than what people realize. It's not just putting a song to a scene. It's all of the licensing, which is like, it's a lot of legal work. It's like being almost like a paralegal in some ways.
Totally.
I'm sure. How has, like, obviously now you and Lara have this amazing podcast. You dive into sad songs, but how have both your roles have changed? Not just balancing the podcast, but since those early 2000s and where streaming has gone. And like, I feel like there was a time where music and film were so together and then it like split apart while we figured out all the streaming stuff. Is that stuff that you guys resonate
I'm curious,
on?
why do you think it split apart?
I think that's maybe my view as a consumer.
Okay.
And my view of it is because there's not as many episodes. So we're not getting as big of playlists.
Okay. So yeah, like the model, the television model split apart.
And the fandom seems to me more around characters than the music.
And can you give an example?
I guess I'll use like The Summer I Turned Pretty. Like everyone was obsessed with. I think the youngest generation was obsessed with the music because it was Taylor Swift songs. They were viewing stuff on TikTok, but maybe if you got a little bit older, it was around Conrad's character and like Jeremiah's character.
Belly. By the way, are you Conrad or Jeremiah?
I'm definitely team Conrad, but honestly forget The Summer I Turned Pretty, because even though I was diehard, I am now an off-campus girly through and through.
Okay.
I am Garrett Graham.
You can be both and.
I agree, but at least Garrett Graham is like all green flags. Like Conrad definitely.
Conrad was sad sometimes. Like, I was like, oh. Yeah, people would say Lucas was super mopey on One Tree Hill too.
Yes, but at least he had great music taste, and that's because of you. Like, I don't even know. Like, my point is, I don't know Conrad's music taste.
Okay, all right. Well, I think so. What has changed? I mean, the 22 episode a year was like a grind. Like, it was exciting and fun, but it was also like I had someone who helped me with paperwork, and so he worked in my office. He was helping. I shared an office with Madonna Wade Reed after she and Jen split up their partnership. And this guy, Lucas, would come in and help us do our paperwork, but he was kind of like, he helped Madonna. And then I was like, great, I'll have you help me. But his first week, he thought I was a bitch because I was like stressed. I was just like, I was like focused, and we were all in one room. So I couldn't like close the door. And he'd be like, hey, how are you doing? I'd be like, fine, but I have like 10 songs to clear for Monday's episode. So like, I gotta go. And so that was like a grind. And I worked on Ghost Whisperer too at the time. So
that was also amazing music back then. And I was scared of everything. And I watched that because of many different reasons. But yeah.
And very different musically too.
Yes.
I mean, not like, but anyway.
Smallville though too.
Anyway, so those, having 2 shows was like a lot. And then as the orders, like the episode orders got smaller and YouTube came up. So, the episode orders getting smaller sucks, period, because we get paid per episode. So it is also very heavily influenced how much work we have to take on. So, right, like I could have done 1 season of One Tree Hill, and now that's 2 TV shows.
Yeah.
And then they take, each of them take just as long.
Right.
And there was, when that first started happening, and I was, 2 of the executive producers from One Tree Hill went and started Awesomeness TV, the YouTube channel. And so they would like call me anytime they needed music. And that was a little bit like Wild West, which was crazy and exciting at the same time. But was also really creative. Like, we did a web series called Side Effects, where the whole idea was that this girl took, antidepressants that made her hallucinate musical numbers that were basically covers of, we had like 2 originals and they were covers. So it would like, like she was getting bullied. So we licensed Taylor Swift Mean, but we had her sing it and covered it in like a Go-Go's 80s style.
Yeah.
And her hallucination was her like standing up to the bullies or whatever. It was like super fun and creative. I loved being able to work on stuff like that. So there was a time where there were like a ton of little things but I'd work on like 15 of them or 10 of them. Right.
Yeah.
And for a second, I actually made more money working on like, 2 normal things and 10 tiny things, right? In a year. But then that kind of slowed down, but it's also a weird pace of life. Like your attention is just split all over the place. And I do even think like, working on a show like Virgin River, even Exo Kitty was 10 episodes season 1, and then it's only 8.
Which drove me crazy because they're only half-hour episodes.
Totally.
And I needed whatever the latest season was. I was like, why is this only 8 episodes? I watched that in like one evening.
I know. And yeah. And they were just as hard to work on. It is like 30 minutes. It's not like 22, which is what like a network half hour would have been.
Right.
But, anyway. So, but that, I also feel like 8 is just insulting. Just give us 10. Like, what really? You can't come up with 2 more plots? Right. There was 1 season of Virgin River where you were 12. We did 2 Christmas episodes.
And we're not getting, I think, back to like the music, we're not getting what you described perfectly was the ensemble cast and their personalities through that music because there's not enough room. So we're focusing on 2 characters, which is also changing the fandom culture.
Interesting.
Because I think Off Campus did it well where they gave those last 2 episodes to Allie and Dean because they're setting it up for season 2 and that's how the books did it, whatever. But now there's a whole, J-Lo's song took off again because we're all transitioning to the next couple. And that's smart because I think like, if again, we're bringing back One Tree Hill, but like we would bounce between Peyton and Lucas and Brooke, and then, and then Nathan and Haley. And it was just, you chose your team.
Right.
It's like sports.
Yes.
And we see what sports does.
I agree. I think part of it is 10 episodes are very manageable for the actors.
Yeah.
They tend to be, not as stressful on the crew.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure there are a lot of advantages to it.
For sure.
What I think the hard part is the waiting in between seasons, which feels like, what? Like, you want me to remember for a year what happened? I think that's challenging. I do think, this one thing that I love about television versus film is that you do at least get those 8 to 10 episodes with the characters rather than just like 90 minutes and every song spot has to be like perfect.
Right.
Like, I can hear, a great love song for this couple and wait till the right moment to use it. Mm-hmm. Because it always happens. You're like, oh, this song is so good. It would be so good for this character. But like the scene just never comes up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that even happened on One Tree Hill. So like, again, like the scene is dictating it. You can't really like shoehorn a song in. It'll feel like it was shoehorned in. So, I love that this like love for One Tree Hill is happening and has come back because every year we were on the bubble. We almost didn't get picked up. We had like our 2 million viewers and they were passionate and they always tuned in, but it was never
enough.
The huge show, you know what I mean? So I feel a little bit like, it's finally getting its flowers. And I love that. Cause I was 23 when it started.
Yeah. 23 is a big number for you.
Oh, I might've been 24. Dang. No, 23 is a big number for the show.
But also
But know that, right?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Now, yes.
That's the only reason I bring it up.
Yes. Now, because of the Nathan's number, all of
Yes.
that. Yeah.
Which was a Chicago Bulls thing.
Yeah.
And that we premiered on the 23rd, and then that Jimmy Eat World song happened to be called 23.
Didn't you also now this is me just going crazy. Was 23 the one that was broken up across scenes, or was Kill broken up across scenes?
I don't remember.
I think it was Kill.
I mean, 23 definitely went over Big End Montage.
Right.
Okay.
But I thought there was a Jimmy Eat World song that went across a couple different episodes too. And I felt like it strung together like 3 or 4 episodes really well.
I don't remember that.
That was me. Sorry, I just completely randomly
happened.
thought about that. Yeah.
But I grew up with the show, and I lived and breathed it, and being able to be on one show or have only one of 2 shows gave me the space to do that. Mm-hmm. Like I was so invested in every music choice.
Yeah.
In a way that is just harder to do now when you have to do a couple different shows.
I'm sure. And now with the podcast, like why is sad songs the thing that you gravitate towards to amplify storytelling?
I mean, honestly, it just came from a place of like, they're the most fun uses. They're usually the most dramatic. Mm-hmm. So sometimes I think I've always liked sad songs. I've always liked the ballad. Mm-hmm. There's usually like a chord. If you listen to the podcast, I'm always like, oh, the chord. Like it just like strikes me here. Like that thing that gets you in the heart. And which I think was in a lot more songs in the One Tree Hill era. I feel like if we listened to that, there would be a lot of heart squeeze chords. Jimmy Eat World, very good at that. And then I think we're like, when we started talking to people, like everybody has a favorite sad song.
Yeah.
Right.
What are your favorites?
So this is why when we have guests on, we say, what's your favorite sad song?
Yeah.
And a couple, I mean, I don't have one, which is why we have a podcast.
Yes.
But one that like Laura and I bonded over right away was Above the Clouds of Pompeii by Bear's Den, which they were like our 3rd episode because we were like, this is the song that like inspired the music video for that will kill you. In the best way possible.
Okay, I don't think I've seen the movie.
Okay. And then I was also like the teenager who I loved to have a good cry. Like
Right.
I would watch the sad movie because I would put on the sad song and be like, I need a cry. For me, it was a release.
Yeah.
Which I think is actually like a pretty healthy
it is.
response. But to
Totally.
me, I was just being a teenager at the time, you
Yeah.
know? And music was always my outlet. But I think some of like the prettiest songs are sad songs. And then So it's just, it's just a framework to talk to people. It's funny, like we'll be considering guests and we'll be like, but what's the song? Like it needs to, like I try to, like Laura and I try to, when we talk about it, make sure it's still always about the song, that we're not ever doing something just for like the sake of doing it. I mean, sometimes there's a reason for that, but we need an angle in, we need a song that, and the word sad is like, it's a super vague term. So really it's about what moves us.
Melancholy is like what I gravitate towards too.
Totally.
Because there's like obviously some very devastating songs, but you wouldn't know it depending on the music that is in the background unless you read the lyrics. And not everybody does that. I obsessively read lyrics, but that was my way into storytelling.
Right.
Was through the lyrics. But
totally. And I think someone called us the sad song queens on social media after To All the Boys came out. And I was like, sad song queen. So that's where that came from. And then I had a coordinator at one point and she placed, it was Matthew Perryman Jones' Save Me. And it was like in an end montage, like Brooke and Julian moment on One Tree Hill. And we sat and watched the episode like, oh my God, this works so well. I think we cried. And she looked at me and she said, I pulled a Lindsay. And I was like, what does that mean? And she's like, I made you cry. Like, I was the queen of finding songs that like in the scene made you cry. So that's always been my thing.
I love that. No, I mean, I definitely still cry to a lot. I mean, my sister was telling me last night before I got it, she's like, here comes the regular, like that ball. Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like sometimes I don't always cry at the songs that have made me cry.
Right.
It's just sometimes it's like, it's not the need to even feel sad. It's just almost to validate the sadness that song creates or that it has in the past. Like that's what Round Here does for me is like, I remember hearing that and seeing that performance for the first time on YouTube. And it just spoke to me and made me feel such anguish. And my life was a mess at the time. And I didn't know what I was about to graduate college and I didn't know what I was going to do with my life. Like sitting in this man's apartment in Paris. And I just felt so validated by the emotion that he was delivering the song. But like, I can still listen to that song and be like, oh, this is,
and song. He like goes there. She must be tired of something. She's thinking about jumping. Like, the way Adam Duritz sings that is so powerful. Sullivan Street is my favorite sad song.
Oh,
that is Counting Crows.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
That's one of those songs that like always gets me.
That's my boyfriend's mom's like, one of her favorites.
I also love Taylor Cornelia Street. But I also love Champagne Problems. I was listening with my daughter and I love Champagne Problems. Like Taylor Swift come on the podcast to talk about
she went to my high
Champagne
school.
Problems. She did? Mm-hmm. Wait, where are you from?
Wyomissing, Pennsylvania.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
she grew up in a house that's like 10 minutes from mine. My one friend moved in there after they obviously moved to Nashville and like used to have sleepovers there. And another family I knew moved in there. Now I don't know the family that lives there.
In her house.
Wow,
that's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, love. My daughter was like, Champagne Problems is so sad. And I was like, it's just a beautiful story. It is sad.
It is.
But
it is. That's my sister's favorite too.
Oh, yeah. It's so funny.
Yeah.
And I know it's like, but the emotional moments were always like,
But it's one of those things that I think it's important to talk about those things.
Yeah.
But thank you so much for joining the show. I feel like I want to create a playlist just from all the songs that we've talked about.
Yes.
I think I will. But thank you so much for sharing your craft. And I can see when you talk like how much you love what you do. And that's
thanks.
so important. It's so important to the Sparkle mission. So thanks for joining us, Lindsay.
Yay, sparkle on.
Sparkle on.